Well, switching gears now, we talk a lot about the future of warfare playing out in cyberspace, but what if military conflict will be more of a war of the minds? Well, new brain sciences could make this possible. An agency of the Department of Defense is researching ways to enhance military tactics by enhancing the mind. The agency is DARPA, or the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. By making soldiers more alert to drugging the enemy, altering the mind could change the battlefield as we know it. Details about what exactly DARPA is working on is detailed in the book you see there, Mind Wars, Brain Science in the Military in the 21st Century. The author, Jonathan Morena, has been following DARPA's actions and joins us now to reveal what he's found out. Morena is also a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. Morena, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
So we just saw your book cover there, and when you talk about the war of the minds, what exactly are you referring to?
You know, the most important link in warfare has always been the brain of the soldier. In the ancient world, you really couldn't do much to improve a warfighter except to give a brilliant speech if you were a commander. In the 19th century, the Prussian army tried cocaine. In the 20th century, nicotine and caffeine, and sometimes if you have to walk over the hill into certain death or near certain death, you drink a lot of alcohol. But we are getting a little more familiar with how the brain actually works now. For example, neuroscientists are beginning to understand what parts of the brain react most to stressful conditions. And if you can understand that, then maybe you can start to understand the neural pathways that can be managed with drugs or with sophisticated external electrical or magnetic systems that can, as the scientists say, down-regulate these stress reactions. So that's one option.
And so it looks like these, you listed methods that have been used in the past, that these methods are getting much more sophisticated.
We're learning a lot more about the brain now, partly because we have ways of looking inside the brain, these amazing images of people who are looking at something or experiencing something, and different parts of the brain are activated. Obviously, we're learning a lot more about genetics and the way our genes control the way our brains are laid out even before birth, and the way they change over time. So, yeah, we're getting to the point now where we're really understanding the mechanisms of the brain that were not available to previous generations.
Now, with this new information, I mean, how can we use this to enhance our soldiers?
You know, it turns out to be a lot harder than the science fiction writers have told us for a long time. We're not going to be seeing robot soldiers, per se, anytime soon. We're not going to be, even in terms of national security, we're not going to be seeing mind-reading machines at the airport. But there are more subtle things. For example, the biggest problem that soldiers have in combat is just staying awake and alert. That turns out to be really hard to manage with anything better than coffee. But there are things that are now available in the marketplace that are called the anti-sleep pill. And that might turn out to be an enhancer for better than amphetamines, which pilots have been using for a while, better than amphetamines or complement to speed. So that might help. The other idea is, or one of the many other ideas is, you might be able to use little magnetic pulses, which are already being used, to help people learn things faster, or to help you make you more attentive. So there are some more subtle ways than making a robotic soldier that are really, I think, on the horizon.
I also want to get to, so in addition to enhancing our own soldiers, I know you talk in your book about being able to alter the minds of our enemies.
Yeah.
How can we do that?
You know, the best way to do that is to make them think they're going to lose. There's nothing like old-fashioned propaganda to do that. That's been around for a long time. There have been ideas, as you know, about putting hallucinogens like LSD in the water supply, or maybe getting them in some kind of aerosol. None of that really works very well. So I think compromising the brains of other soldiers is going to be pretty much an old-fashioned uses of propaganda and disinformation in the near future. But in the long run, if people can figure out ways to use aerosols that won't be scattered by the weather, won't be made ineffective by the sunlight, you know, those things are of some interest.
I think I did some reading and possibly using oxytocin in enemies. Is that a possibility?
So, oxytocin is something that probably you and I are making in our brains right now. It happens when we're having a nice conversation, when we're out with friends, when we're on a date, when you're having a baby. I haven't had that experience, but my wife has, and we make oxytocin. It stimulates the letdown reflex. It's a social trust kind of a neurohormone. It does a lot of things, but one of the things it does is it makes us comfortable with other people and want to engage with other people. So some people have speculated that if you gave somebody oxytocin in an interrogation situation, that you might make whoever walks into the room the good cop, that you might be a little more loose and more willing to talk. It's an interesting idea. It would be illegal under the Chemical Weapons Treaty.
It would be
illegal.
Illegal.
Yeah, under international law, it would be illegal to use that. It would be a chemical weapon. So you really couldn't do that. But it's something that people have speculated about.
Interesting. And I know that you were able to learn a lot about this through DARPA. How are you able to learn so much about it to kind of get the inside scoop? And is DARPA open to sharing this scientific research?
It's really interesting. The old American radical journalist I.F. Stone used to say, people ask me how I can get this information. I just read the newspaper. I just keep track of things. It's amazing how much is really available in open source, and that's all I needed to use to kind of connect the dots and to see where not only the U.S. but other military establishments are going with respect to the brain.
Really interesting. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming into the studio today. That was Jonathan D. Moreno, author of Mind Wars, Brain Science in the Military in the 21st Century, and professor at the University of Pennsylvania.